glad everyone's here tonight. I want to welcome you to the Business of Health Career Networks program's first panel of the year, which is very exciting. And this is all about healthcare consulting. Thank you all for joining us for the panel, which is part of the UNC Center for the Business of Health Career Networks program. Career Networks is a constellation of resources meant to educate and create community around the continuously evolving healthcare ecosystem. And I'm going to go ahead and send y'all post our website for Career Networks so you can see a little bit about what that is and see future events. You can explore all that we have in that pasted URL. For tonight's panel, we ask that you turn your video on and mute your microphone while not asking questions. If you're in clinic or somewhere where you cannot share your camera, we totally understand. But just for communication's sake, we'd love for you to turn your camera on so we feel that we're in a group, in an audience. Tonight's panel will begin with our guests introducing themselves. Then I will be asking moderated questions. I'll stop every 2 questions to allow for our audience questions. So get those really burning, great questions in your minds, and we'll stop every once in a while for you all to go ahead and ask those. When you have your question, just raise your digital hand, unmute, or again, too, if you cannot use your audio, please feel free to paste the question in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring that as we go along. I'm Suzanne Killian, Associate Director for Student Engagement with the Center for the Business of Health, and I have Erin Leach, our Program Manager, behind the scenes tonight, so we're glad to have her here too. But tonight, the real stars of the show, we are glad to have our 3 outstanding panelists, Jeron Eaves, Chloe He, and Tsui, who will share their career journeys and introduce you to the healthcare consulting industry from their diverse perspective. So I am going to let them take it away. And since Jeron popped in first, I'm going to hand it over to him, and then you all can go around with your introduction. So Jeron, take it away.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. Jeron Eaves. I am a 2-time Tar Heel. It's great to be here today. BS in 2000, MBA 2008. I started my career as a scientist doing drug discovery research for a couple of different biotechs in RTP, and the second of those was acquired, and in that process I realized I was not meant to be in a lab anymore, but still had a passion for healthcare and the life sciences. So I made the transition to consulting about 20 years ago, and have been doing that since, first with a company called Campbell Alliance, and then I was part of the founding team of Blue Matter, which I am still with today. I'm happy to talk more about us and what we do and our experiences a little later, but pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Chloe,
is
we'll
that
put
you?
you on
Are
the
you
spot
next?
since you were
Yeah.
next in. Yep.
Okay, I can go next. My name is Chloe He, and I'm currently a marketing analytics manager at Abbott Diabetes Care. And I started my career with Eli Lilly China, being there for about 7 to 8 years. And after that, I went to UNC to pursue my full-time MBA, and I'm class of 2022. So after graduation, I joined CS Associates as a consultant, being there for 3 years and pivot to my current show. So thank you so much and for having me here today, and nice to meet all those smiley faces.
Thank you. And she round us out.
Hey, thank you, Suzanne. Hey, everyone. My name is Troy. Most people call me Chi. I'm an associate partner with Chartis. We're a healthcare consulting firm based out of the Chicago area, but I currently reside in Raleigh, so not too far from probably a lot of you. My background prior to getting into consulting is clinical. So I started my career as a physician assistant. So it came from a high volume orthopedic practice based out of North Jersey, similar to maybe like a Raleigh Orthopedics or an Emerge Ortho. Got to work with a lot of great doctors there. My boss, Ken Montgomery, is a pretty well-known guy in the orthopedic circles, but we took care of the Jets. So really learned how to practice medicine the right way. And then through that experience, had a lot of opportunities to work on various operational and strategic initiatives. and then ultimately took that, pivoted over into wanting to get my MBA, came down to Chapel Hill in 2018, and then was lucky through the UNC program to get through the recruiting process and was able to land at Chartis, where I've been since 2020. So happy to talk through anything related to career pivoting, clinical careers, and how you can kind of continue to stay involved in the great world of healthcare.
Terrific. Thank you so much for the great introduction. And I think our first question, I really hope that you can explain a little bit about your current role, or Chloe, in your instance, your role with ZS to begin with, and then your Abbott role, and explain a little bit about what it is. Like, what exactly is your role, and what steps did you take to land in your current career? And we can popcorn around. So anybody feel like that's burning to start, go ahead.
I can get started, and there's a old Chinese saying, basically, literally mean to serve the like the bricks to attract the jades. So I'll just share what I'm thinking and based on my role. And I think Jeron and Chi, hopefully it is inspiring to share some more valuable insights from your perspective. So for me, when I was in CS, I'm a consultant, so I help here and there with multiple different kinds of projects, but majorly that is commercial focused, like a CS traditional offering, Salesforce sizing, alignment and placement, and how to build a measurement framework for the marketing team for different clients. And I work across big farmers and sometimes the med tech as well, to get to know what is the healthcare system and how we can build all those dots together. And so my role at CS is just to work with different stakeholders and including the clients and including the principal and the managers to understand what are the requirements from the clients, and also in the meantime to have the different team members to support my projects and help to deliver what's needed for the customer. It's just to put all those PPT and also the spreadsheet, Excel together and try to get the accurate results and the valuable insights to the clients. And as I pivot from the consulting role to my current role, which is marketing analytics manager, I'm currently helping Abbott Diabetes Care to build their analytical framework. Basically, there's no previous role to help the marketing team to make the data-driven decision. So I'm building the dashboard and also building different kinds of projects to help attribute the promotion activities to the sales outcome and make sure every penny spent on the marketing activities makes sense, and we can measure those impacts, something like this. So yeah, I will just pause here. I think Jeron and Chi, you may have more valuable insights coming in.
I can go next. I'm a managing partner with Blue Matter. I've been with the company since we started. There were 5 of us back in 2012. Today, there's something about around 350 to 375. We work only in biopharma, so strategic consulting across product, portfolio, organizational strategy for very, very big pharma companies. Most of the global top 20 are current or recent clients, and lots of very, very small emerging companies with cool science, but nowhere to really take it thus far. And I can say that there's a lot that I am today that I still was 10, 15 years ago. I'm still a consultant. I still love to get in and solve problems and understand how I individually or we collectively can make an impact to the life science community. Now that just so happens to be in a somewhat different environment today than it was when there were 5 of us. But we still do the same types of things, is try to help people create some path from innovation of amazing ideas to patient impact that need it, whether that's it's somewhat agnostic to disease area and geography around the world, around different types of unmet need. But the role still stays the same. Chief?
Very cool. Yeah, I think similar to Jeron, so I started at Chartis about 5 years ago. So I've kind of come up through the ranks, started as a consultant, engagement manager, and now I'm starting to take on more progressive leadership roles. Chartis is a little bit different than the first two companies we've heard about in the sense that we work mostly on the provider space. So a lot of our clients, unlike the pharmaceuticals, is kind of healthcare systems. So when you think of UNC Health, Duke Health, so the way we support those clients is through anything from strategic advisory. I sit in our kind of clinical transformation group, which is kind of bread and butter operations, clinical operations. We have a area that's aligned with digital transformation, financial transformation. So across a variety of different areas, depending on what the flavor of the day, depending on what the client needs are, we try and be responsive to them and kind of support them in whatever way we need, whatever way they need to be able to answer some of the complex problems and the challenges that they're dealing with. In terms of my day-to-day role, I think when you start as a consultant, probably like Jeron and Chloe, like you're rolling up your sleeves and doing Excel models and, making slides, which can be fun. But then as you kind of progressively grow within the firm, it's like, how do we then take that and kind of really drive value for your clients, being able to think through, what are some, I'll give you a great example. Right now, I'm on a current client where we're thinking through the impacts of the one big beautiful bill and what that means on health systems and how those companies should be responsive to some of the changes that are coming. So it's cool to be able to grow within a firm, but then also kind of as you think about the firm and how the changing needs of each of the companies that you serve will change over time. It's cool when you kind of think about it at a micro level.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And I hope the audience can see how diverse roles can be in what we would call the same industry, and they can differ very much from company to company, from where you are in your career trajectory at that time. So thank you so much for kind of clarifying what you're doing now. My second question kind of, I guess, will support the first question. And what skills, abilities, and experiences do you use regularly and most often in your current role? And also, did any of those surprise you, from your education and your background? Like, oh, I really didn't think I was going to be doing this all day. So again, the skills, abilities, and experiences that you use regularly.
I'll take a shot at that. I think it's not just skills that I hope to use, but I believe are important for the entire team. Consulting for me starts with the ability to have structured and logical processes to enable problem solving. So can you build the fundamental construct of a situation analysis, understand context and why that matters, think through paths to developing a solution or an array of potential solutions? That's one. The second is, can you collaborate? Oftentimes, no matter how experienced you are, you lack some perspective, line of sight to some specific domain, something that means you have to collaborate with others to create a better way to solve that problem. And then third is, can you communicate that throughout? Can a client or a team be on the same journey with you in understanding the nature of the issue, how you might solve it, and what the implementation of some potential solution might look like? And I don't think that has surprised me in my career in consulting. What does sometimes surprise me is how sometimes you need all three. Sometimes you need to dial up one. The solution may be right there in front of someone, but being able to communicate effectively can be all you need to get it over the finish line. Sometimes it's not your role to communicate to that many people. It's your role to enable them to come to their own conclusions through structure and problem solving. And so dialing up various consulting skills is very contextual. And I think I've learned that over and over, how to think through what every individual situation needs, not just apply one type of approach to every situation.
I would like to add to what Jeron said, and I think what Jeron shared totally makes sense, and I fully agree with these 3 points. But also, I wanted to add the unstructured problem solving is also very important. The ability to whiteboard the potential solutions, essentially breaking down the complex problems and identifying what data we would use to help us understand the why behind them, it is extremely important in consulting environment, because especially for healthcare, there's a common challenge, which is the lack of the comprehensive data sets. And the clients often come to us precisely because they don't have the clear answers. So that's why they are seeking help from the consulting firm. So I think it requires a mix of the creative thinking and also unstructured problem solving. So these kind of skills, I never thought about, like you don't have a clear answer, you don't have a process that you can follow with, is a little bit surprise to me. But it also makes sense to me because you will need to navigate some of the limitations here and there and build the logic approach. And also, I feel like it is continuingly to be very valuable to my current role. So every company have different barriers and challenges. So limited data sources and clear root cause behind those like performance trends and market shifts. So how can we navigate that? I think that requires some of the capabilities over there as well.
Wow, good answers. I think I'm going to take an unconventional approach on this, but I think one of the I think most impactful classes that I took at UNC was improv. And I think it's probably like a right combination of like Chloe, I talked a lot about like the foundational skills, being able to, think critically and critical thinking, analytics, like yes, you need all of those. But I also think that there's this kind of like idea that being able to be a good listener and being a good thought partner with whoever it is that you interact with on a daily basis. So as a consultant, being able to do that in a thoughtful way with your partners, like I just had a 2-minute meeting with my partner. I'm actually not sure what he or she wants. Like, let me think about like what they're thinking about and kind of being one step ahead. And like, let's play this game of me being able to kind of help you and then you kind of play it back to me. But I think it's increasingly helpful when you kind of apply that to clients, right? Like, what are they actually asking? Like, why did they initially hire the consulting firm? So that's kind of one of the things that I've been thinking about lately in terms of how I can continue building that skill set.
Love the improv edition, Chi. I thought the same thing as we were considering this panel a couple weeks ago, like how important that class was to me in being able to navigate complex and sometimes surprising conversations where you're trying to figure out how to take
Yeah.
the right path. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. We're trying to be on brand for Suzanne, had to do the
Absolutely. And I
UNC
see
plug.
one of our students, the president of our healthcare club, just said it. I'm in the class now. So
Oh, did they?
Greg Hahn's great. I
multiple
just
thumbs
had
up.
just had the class with him today, so highly recommend.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's sometimes a tough sell because I'll bring it up to students and they're like, "Hmm?"
Yeah,
But then
great.
they hear from peers that it's excellent. So thank you so much. Extraordinarily insightful responses here. So I'm going to open it up for the first time tonight to our audience. So again, too, if anyone has a question, just raise your hands. We'll entertain a couple so we can get through some more questions, but then we'll have hopefully some time at the end or not, because sometimes discussion breaks out. So any questions from the audience? Right, I get my pause. Yes, Sita, go ahead.
Hi everyone. Thank you for your time here. Jeron, you talked about something very interesting that we sometimes need to pick on one of the three skills. It could be communication at one point, structured problem solving at another, and collaboration some other time. Could you give me an example where collaboration was a skill that you had to dial in on specifically more than the other two?
Sure. I mean, any sort of so as a consultant, oftentimes you're looking at a very discrete and well-defined problem that sort of sits in a box that one person can understand given their experience and background. But more often for us, and increasingly, we want bigger and bigger problems, which require you to collaborate with others to find areas that you may have zero expertise on. So dialing up collaboration actually, I think, is correlated with the complexity of the problem. If it's cross-functional in nature, if it's bigger than just one person or one team or one decision, you need to collaborate with others so that you can sort of mimic the environment that that decision is being made in. Think about the science behind decision making. How would an access person or a medical person or a commercial person or a patient or a physician see the same problem? And collaborative analysis of that and understanding how you might think through that together is more and more important the more complicated the issue is. And so I think we push for collaboration because I think even in small, well-defined problem that makes the outcome better. But certainly when they're unstructured or complex, you need more and more eyes on it from different places, which sometimes means you go a little slower, but you get to a better place.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Makes a lot of sense.
Perfect. Thanks for that first question.
If I can add to that, so collaboration for me is not only the collaboration within your firm with different stakeholders, but also a collaboration with the clients as well. So the clients, they are navigating this kind of solution because they face this kind of challenge. And we are not like against each other because they pay us to do so. We're just trying to figure out what is the solution for to that and like to answer the business question altogether. So we are partners. So I'm not treating myself as a I'm hired for that specific client, but instead I'm helping you to make the perfect solution to that challenge.
Yeah, great point there. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, too, as we always want to emphasize, although I don't really call it soft skill because it's a very difficult skill, but the soft skills, as they say, are just as important as many of the technical skills. So again, thank you, Chloe. That was a great addition. Further questions? All right, Claire.
Hello. I'm curious what you guys love most about consulting as opposed to doing like an internal strategy role. Why consulting instead of something internal?
I'm happy to go, but you go first. I saw you come off mute, Chief.
I guess great question, Claire. I think there's probably pros and cons. I think, when what immediately came to mind was like diversity of experience, right? So every whatever time period, whether it's 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 years, you get to kind of popcorn over to a new client that has new problems, and sometimes the refresh is nice. Perks of kind of consulting, you get to travel if that's considered valuable, right? Sometimes you get to travel to and from clients, at least for me. Um, but I think one of the things, I think the diversity piece is really big, like diversity of kind of perspective. One of the things that you're limited to when you're only working for a singular organization is you only know best practice within that organization. And so you have an N of one as opposed to an N of 50. I think that's cool. Like, sometimes I tell our clients is like, the only difference between me is that I've been able to kind of had the opportunity to work with lots of clients, so I get to kind of tell you what everyone is doing. But I think that when you kind of weigh the kind of pros and cons as you think about future careers, I think on the flip side, there's also lots of opportunities on the internal side. Like sometimes as consultants, we don't get to see that grow, right? If we implement solution or recommend solutions, sometimes we don't get to see the lasting impact of those solutions, or we're not able to, be there to see it through. So I think there's pros and cons, but I think some of those ones are kind of what do it for me, right? Diversity, some of the travel, being able to work with different teams every time. I personally like the diversity.
And I'll second that. I think the diversity of experiences is certainly one that continues to challenge you all the time in consulting, but there's also an element of that which is diversity of learning opportunities. You get to do new things, which is cool to apply skills to different types of problems, but every engagement affords you an opportunity to learn something different too. So I think it actually accelerates your development, which is related to a second part. For me, I started in doing a very specific type of project for years, and I thought that I was pretty good at that. And at the time was like, oh, this is great. I can succeed in this type of business. And only when I did a lot of different other project types did I realize, oh, I was just okay at that. I could be so much better because I was able to pick up other types of skills and apply them back to the thing that I was doing originally. For some people, there's an expiration to that. You find the thing you're passionate about and you want to go into industry. But consulting is a good way to find what that is and actually practice the surround sound of skills that will ultimately make you even better in that one job that you do choose to take on the industry side.
Yeah, can I just, Jaron, I love that because like I feel like there's an element of like I don't know anyone likes the Marvel universe like I feel like there's an element of Thanos, right? You just collect all these like rings and
Yep.
skills. But I think that as you think about your professional development, like having that diversity of learning, as you had said, it's like, oh, I never got to do that, but now it's like another ring or whatever that
Yep.
Thanos collects, and you kind of collect that and you help build your own brand.
And you find things you're really passionate about. You're like, I
Yeah.
didn't even know it existed, and that's the thing that I want to do. And that's a cool experience.
Mhm. Thank you. All right, Molly.
Okay, hi. So I'm a pharmacy student at UNC, and I was just curious if you guys knew like any opportunities if they exist for pharmacists in like healthcare consulting, and if so, how would someone like go about like getting their foot in the door?
I interviewed a PharmD earlier today, so I can tell you that we consider those types of people, and it all just depends on basic underlying skills and capabilities.
I think for Chartis, I think we recruit like we had an intern this summer. I think that was a dual degree MBA pharmacist. And then I know topically within our firm, like we've been approached by health system clients that are interested in 340B, kind of inventory and supply management. So those are kind of real challenges that we've leveraged the expertise that pharmacists bring to the table. Um, so I definitely think there is that like niche area where they're looking for that level of expertise. A lot of times you start as a consultant, but very quickly you ramp up and you're able to flex that expertise.
I've got a couple of friends from CS who are pharmacy, and also Abbott is recruiting something similar to promoting to the pharmacist. So just for your information.
Thank you.
There are many languages within healthcare. Some of it is scientific and technical, others are commercial, others are medical and clinical. And I think there are many different educational backgrounds that can either pick up that language or already know it. And that includes PharmDs, MPHs, MDs, MBAs. We hire them all depending just on, the languages that they speak, and how they can bring some sort of similar skills to the table.
Okay. And Molly, also coming to things like this, panels, networking, meeting people across campus that might be out of the pharmacy school, excellent way
Yeah, for
to
sure.
start getting that foot toward the door. Great, thank you. Jamie?
Hi, yes, I'm Jamie Hunter, and I'm in the Gillings Public Health Program. I'm also currently working at UNC Chapel Hill for Lineberger as a research project manager. And just thinking of maybe Chi can help me with this, moving from a academic research, clinical, very, kind of bureaucratic, very regulated space into a role like consulting. What's kind of the biggest challenge of maybe stepping outside, academia, research into industry from your perspectives?
Yeah, good question. I'll give you my kind of lived experience and where I found it challenging. I think one of the things is when I was making that switch was, you bring all this expertise from academia, from the research side, and you feel like, man, I'm like a subject matter expert and I want to provide value. But a lot of times when you first start in consulting, there's a functional like role that you play. It's like, all right, well, Chi, just make the deck. Like that's great, like that's nice, but like at the end of the day, like your role early on, and this is where it comes back to like getting skills, you're not able to flex that like expertise that you bring to the table. You may know tons about research and clinical trial management, but like initially when you first start, it's just learning the foundational elements of what makes you a good consultant. Once you do that, I was kind of told by a mentor like, hey, just stay quiet and you'll see as you kind of grow into the role that then you get pegged like, oh, hey, Chi, you work in orthopedics. Like we do a lot of orthopedic service line work. Can you weigh in? And then you all of a sudden kind of elevate yourself because you already have the clinical, the research, the academic expertise. And so once you're able to learn that skill set, I had an anesthesiology colleague once tell me that like, you can learn the consulting stuff. Like we need leaders like you, but like they can't learn the clinical stuff, and that's not necessarily true. But my point is that like some of it's just being patient, kind of waiting for your opportunities, and then kind of I think Jeron, you had said this, like once you figure out where you're truly passionate, then it allows you to really kind of like exponentially grow that because you're like, hey, this is what I lived before, and now I can apply these really cool consulting frameworks and thinking and really kind of build upon that. I think that's where it gets exciting.
I mean, I'll add one thing only because I think generally we hire a lot of PhDs who have a similar background in that they're extraordinarily deep in one specific subject area. And their knowledge is probably, there might be 3 people in the world that know as much about that topic as they are. And I think transitioning to consulting, you have to understand where the ceiling of knowledge is for the everyday person. You don't get to 99% precision on most things. You have to figure out when you're close to that and you have to make assumptions and move on. Because if you try to answer things at the same level of rigor that you would in academia and consulting, you'll never get to conclusions because you just keep chasing the decimal point of knowledge that is potentially there. And so you have to start to think, how do I understand where I am and make assumptions and move on with everyone in alignment with that without spinning my wheels for months or weeks on end. And that's something that takes people time to develop. Myself, I certainly was like that.
Thank you.
Terrific. Sophia.
Hi, my name is Sophia, and I'm an undergraduate biomedical engineering student, and I'm pretty interested in the healthcare space and pharmaceutical and life science. So my question is, obviously a lot of you work a lot with biopharmaceuticals, big pharma. What are emerging trends that you predict will be very big in the upcoming few years for biopharma, big pharma?
I'm going to say it first.
I was going to say, Chloe, you're in the big pharma right now.
If I can say, I hope the stock price will go up. Yeah, no kidding. So I think for pharma, one of the big investments, I think the bright star is GLP-1, and that is a fierce competition in between Eli Lilly and Novo recently. But in the future, I guess more pharma will get into that area. But in the meantime, there are some other trends like the small biotech acquisition and the M&A, merger and acquisition is going recently with Gilead and some other big farmers as well. So I think that will be a trend moving forward. From my perspective, of course, the big pharma invested a lot on the sales force and marketing, especially for the promotion, and it will be very hard for a mid-size or smaller size company to get into that arena and to spend so much money on R&D moving forward, and also for the promotion they're spending. So there will be more merge and acquisition moving forward. This is from my personal perspective.
I was wondering who was going to say AI first. Was it going to be me or someone else? Because that's the reality that we all live in, is that there are advantages to drug discovery, drug development, finding the right patient through deep and thoughtful data science and the associated machine learning and tools that will enable impact to happen in different ways, sometimes more rapidly, sometimes with more precision, sometimes with better return, sometimes with lower risk, or all of those things. And I think every company has an opportunity to maybe hone the way that they think about their own business model through adapting the right tools, and also a way to kill their business and cultural identity by relying too much only on tools without the things that also matter, thoughtful decision making about how they can impact patients and what matters in the corporate vision and in that context. So it's almost a non-answer because there's so many ways that it could materialize, this boom of technology, but we see it applied in different ways all the time, some thoughtfully and well applied, others perhaps not. And I think it will continue to change the way we think about innovation because it enables a different path to it. And that maybe gives companies like Lilly a pretty good advantage because they can watch other people try to apply different ways of discovering and developing new drugs, and because they're well capitalized, can go and acquire those technologies, as Chloe said, through M&A, with a whole lot of a whole lot of rigor in terms of the technology behind them already potentially being applied, because they can do a lot of things at a big enough scale and fast enough pace early on, given those tools and technologies. It doesn't drag out as long as it used to.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Bradley?
Thanks, Suzanne. Hi, y'all. I'm Bradley Boaz, second year MBA candidate, helping lead the healthcare club this year. My question goes back to something that you mentioned, which was your example with a client. So you were discussing the big, beautiful bill. My mind immediately went to casing. Sounded like a really good case. Maybe that's one for the future. But I know our first years will soon be doing casing. And so taking a step back to that example, what was your structured problem solving approach? And then, so really, how did you go about it? And then how do you go about other problems that you would approach in a similar case?
Great question. I knew I said too much, but basically that question was posed, and that was actually posed to our strategy colleagues. And so kind of my strategy colleagues actually thought through the impact. We actually had a student, so a summer intern, did a lot of the deep dive into the policy, and I kind of saw the end result, which was cool because then I just got to think about the clinical implications. But I think that to answer your question, I don't know the specific details, but what we kind of learned is that, like, at the end of the day, a lot of the impacts of that bill really challenge patient access with regards to how, like, it impacts Medicaid and kind of how the funding is doled out, in terms of hospitals are heavily reliant on a lot of these funds. And so when you pull that back, these are established, entrenched business models. And so when that funding gets pulled, basically, long story short, the health systems have a shortfall, right? And so what I'm currently working on is, across various clinical areas, what does that mean in terms of the same fundamental challenges, but how can we kind of revisit some of our areas? I'm particularly working in peri-op and kind of across our throughput area, so inpatient throughput. Like, what does that mean? How does that number that I was gifted? So Bradley, I wish I could report back more detail, but I was gifted a number. And then how do we kind of think about fixing that shortfall? So that's kind of how it ties together, and it kind of shows the relationship, at least within our firm, kind of who's thinking about different types of problems.
Great, thanks. Suni.
Hey guys, my name is Suni. I'm currently a junior studying health policy management at School of Gillings. And to add on that, I actually did a summer internship about healthcare consulting, and I did getting kind of exposure to the One Big Beautiful Bill, the impact to the healthcare system. I'm trying to explaining that in a correct way, but if not, bear with me. So I feel like the One Big Beautiful Bill is trying to opt out a lot of patients from the Medicare and Medicaid program, and they're actually posing something called worker requirements when those people get the benefits are trying, like they're getting frequently check of their work requirements. So this is results like huge administrative and huge operational burdens to like both the society and healthcare system. But anyways, so my question for you guys today is, since I'm a student studying public health, I don't have a lot of like background knowledge about life science or bio or chemistry. I don't plan to have a advanced degree. So my question is, do you guys are looking for some undergrad student coming right after college and join the firm as a healthcare consultant? Thank you.
I'll take first pass at this. We do, but honestly, less frequently. And part of it is because of just the nature of the work in that we want to meet clients where they are, which is having some fluency in the life sciences. Do we occasionally hire those without a deep academic or industry background? Sure, but it's less common for us, but it does happen. And we do internships as well, which sometimes bridge that gap so we can more closely evaluate someone, and conversely, they can evaluate us as a potential career opportunity. But there's a lot of firms that do those. It's just not quite as frequent in our model.
I would say it is very frequent and very common for CS associates. So usually undergrad are hired as a associates, and then they will get started with the hands-on experience, like execution, and to join the project and to support the end-to-end execution, implementation, developing the model, and polishing the PowerPoint, and developing some things from scratch. And for sure, you will get trained with those kind of multiple different kinds of projects. And you'll be like working with the associate consultant and the consultant, and also manager, principals, and to teach you how to do it in the daily routine. So this is for CS associates.
I would say that,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Chief. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, we do hire. I mean, so I think a common thread for Chartis is we're looking for people that are passionate about healthcare. And I think a big part of what we look for is when people kind of tell their story, like what's their story and how does Chartis help you feel kind of that, what you're looking to do. So passion for healthcare, I think, is number one. And then, technically, with people from Gillings, I think that checks the box for us. That demonstrates that level of competency. I mean, again, we're in the provider space, so it may differ from what Jeron and Chloe are dealing with. But we do hire directly out of Gillings.
That's where I was going to go as well, is that sometimes even if you don't have a deep background in the life sciences, in this case, just the school that you come from with a reputation for creating some, good candidates coming into the industry is sufficiently differentiating even for an undergraduate to give you a shot at lots of places, including ours.
These are terrific questions. And Megan, before I get to you, we do have one question in the chat. Let's see. Mahira asks, I come from healthcare consulting background and recently interned with a biotech firm in the ocular space. From your perspective, across your consulting engagement, what is one entrenched mindset or behavior among healthcare clients that, if changed, would most accelerate both patient impact and business performance?
I can get started. It is not from my experience within healthcare consulting, but is with my recent role. I feel like a lot of thoughts come from the belief volume equals value. So in terms of how many interactions we have with our HCP as a pharmaceutical company, and in terms of how many the touch points and pay search clicks that can drive the incremental volume. But I think it is kind of a mindset, maybe from the leadership team. They will only care about, okay, I will look into those KPIs and make sure it is increasing every month. But actually, how many volume and valued patients that we can get, and to from day to day, right? So I don't think like volume always equals value from my perspective. And this is from the patient impact and business performance perspective. If you can like serve and impact the patients in a better way, in a more engaging way, I think it will be better.
I like that, Chloe. I mean, I think there's something to be said for the way decisions are made that could be optimized. And oftentimes those are based on precedent and long histories of like traditionally this is how we make decisions about what to do. So in some ways this is not going to feel like it directly answers the question, but getting rid of bad ideas more quickly because you're willing to decide and look at the merits of the situation kills bad ideas more quickly, but also accelerates the good ideas because you're able to then put resources and time and effort behind the things that do matter the most. And oftentimes, good ideas get lost because there's a mindset of like tradition or like my baby is more beautiful than any other baby, and just a lack of willingness to think critically about what you're trying to achieve. And I think that mindset is pretty common. You know, they just do things the way they've always been done, and drug discovery and development, it is what it is. Tactical plans have to have 1,000 lines because that's how they always have been. And sometimes I think there's a need for a bit of a refresh in the mindset and willingness to do things differently.
Love that. I was going to offer one other thing. I think, you know, in addition to our health system, like our healthcare clients having an entrenched mindset, I think the American consumer also has an entrenched mindset in many ways, in the sense that they have certain expectations in terms of how they should receive care. I think a great example is like COVID really challenged how we think about getting care. You saw this rapid adoption in telehealth. But as you actually have studied the data, Chartis has a white paper about it. I'm not a big plug guy, but check it out. But it's actually really interesting. You've actually seen it just regress back. Other than certain like areas, behavioral health, derm, that are more conducive to telehealth, I would say most American consumers don't view that as a way that they would like. That's what the data would suggest. Like I don't choose, like that seems convenient. I'm all about patient experience, but the American consumer, the data would suggest that they have an entrenched mindset that, hey, volume is better. I need to go to the doctors. I need to go a lot, and I'm going to go the traditional way of making an appointment. And so I think health systems for me, and you know, life sciences for the others, I think being able to adapt that and really give your clients like what does the consumer want at the end of the day. I think a great example is GLPs, right? Like, you know, traditionally people just took like oral medications, and that I'm sure there was kind of a learning period where there were early adopters that now view that, hey, this is a new way that we can kind of deliver medication. So I think that's also something we should be thinking about. How are our consumers, and what does the patient ultimately want?
Fabulous answers. So thank you so very much. And Megan?
Hi, thank you for all of your discussion so far. I was just curious, like what type of skills you look for in terms of going into consulting as someone who is a PhD candidate, so coming from very heavily focused on that science front.
I'll take another pass at this unless someone wants to jump in. So I think first is problem solving. That's been covered pretty clearly. I think it's the core of a lot of what consultants do, regardless of where they are, what industry they serve. I think mindset is pretty important for these as well. You have to be passionate, you have to be motivated, because that's what makes great ideas actually become a reality. Like you have to care about it enough and like want to do it to be successful. That's just, for me, that's been a life lesson, is like the most successful people are creating a wave that they also want to ride on, not just on someone else's wave. They want to do it. And I think like that doesn't necessarily feel like a hard skill, but it is, I think, specifically for some people. It can't just be because you're smart, because you have good content knowledge or domain expertise is because you really want to do it. That's hard to train for, of course, but as a PhD student, like I think you've committed a lot of time and obviously many years of research, and that shows like a passion for things that could translate well to consulting. And when we look for people, we look at just pure analytical problem solving horsepower, and then it's like, how does that get unlocked by a person that collaborates, that's mission driven, that's passionate, that has a positive can-do mindset? Because then that's when we get the most out of the former.
I feel time management will also be very important for healthcare consulting, because I don't know about Chi and Jeron, but for CS, so usually the consultant can be staff on multiple different projects, like can be 3 to 4, and even like to develop the new proposals for a different like side projects. So that's being said, there will be a lot of like moments that you're struggling with the time management and have to get up very early and working till the late night. So I feel like it is very important to make sure that you spend enough thinking, and also you spend enough time like multiple different projects, and make sure that all those can progress effectively. So just wanted to add that as well. And one additional thing, I think it will be very beneficial to take advantage of healthcare consulting is networking.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to work with the talent people. And so this is what I did. So during like the networking, and also I was referred to my current show. So this is kind of like to build relationship with these like opportunities when you're working with your clients, with your team, your principals, to build a reputation and to leverage the network.
Megan, I just one other thing to add. I think one of the things, if you're thinking about the various companies, I think I don't know that it's a skill, but one of the stories or things that I listen for is like 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 I feel like some people come in and they give generic answers like, oh, I'm PhD, I love science, I love consulting. You're like, all right, well, great. Like it's not super differentiating, but like I think like taking the extra step and saying like, hey, this is like my vision, like putting it in the lens of yourself. This is what I want to do. These are some of the really cool things that y'all are doing at Blue Matter. And I would love to be able to doing this. So I think kind of Jaron had touched on this, but like how does the company, instead of like what can you like transform yourself to do for the company, it's like what is the company doing that really aligns with what you're trying to do? And I think kind of sometimes reversing it makes for a good story. And like I listen for that because like I assume that most people when they recruit, it's like you recruit just for every healthcare company, but you probably have your favorites that like where you really give it some thought. I think that's a differentiator for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Fabulous advice. And the crowd has done my job for me tonight. I've barely had to ask a question, but I do have a couple of more to round out. First, just a really quick question. As you've kind of talked about the skill sets that you use daily, the experiences that you've had in the past, are there any skills or experiences that you wish you had sought out in school that you didn't?
I can get started. I'm thinking of like two parts. One is the technical skills. I wish I spent more time on that. Especially like the SQL, like those coding things, and of course the Power BI, the Tableau, those dashboard development and stuff. And also another skill set that is to leverage your resources from your professors, classmates, to build relationship with them. And yeah, that will be very helpful.
Um, Chloe, I'm glad you said that because I think this is maybe not a skill. I have two things, one of which it may not be a skill, but I increasingly recognize the value of experiences outside of the industry. So sometimes we get so focused on like, okay, what is the life science parallel that we've seen with this other company or this biotech or this pharma, that I think bringing experience from outside the industry is maybe important to help draw new types of insights. And I wish that I could go back and like really understand different industries more, because it might actually help me in this one. And I think I just thought of it as this unique little specific thing that, you know, I was very insular in that way. But I kind of wish I could learn skills for how the same types of problems are solved outside of the industry. Whether that's a true skill or not, I'm not totally sure. But the other one is an understanding that there is a wealth of data in healthcare. And sometimes it's disparate and disconnected and complex and doesn't even speak the same language. But knowing that, I think, is a skill that I wish I would have developed a little bit earlier on. What data is out there? How can it be used to make decisions about where needs are, what innovations can address those needs, and how to get there? That's increasingly important, and it's not going to stop being important.
Yeah, I think similarly, I think just like how work has changed. I think the one area, and this is maybe like a selfish thing, but like I would love to learn more about like digital marketing. Like I think like when you think about Instagram, like TikTok, like I think like the younger generations really challenge how we reach other people and how we engage. And like when you think about a lot of these like influencers, like I forget the guy, Mr. Big, whatever his name is. There's just like all these interesting characters, but they really leverage that platform to be able to reach people. And when you think about like companies, I feel like many ways companies are lagging behind some companies that really do it well and they're able to engage and get to know their clients or their customers. I think that is something that's probably worth learning more about while you're in business school.
Terrific. Oh, those are all just so unique and important. Thank you. All right, we have 2 minutes left. So again, I think Chloe touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm sure she has more. But I'm going to kind of count and like put an X through AI. But what trends other than AI do you see in the next 10 years for your industry or industries with which you work?
I would like to build on what she shared for the digital marketing stuff. One of the things I observed is the healthcare industry, especially for pharma, we are training more like CPG company. So, cause like the HCP themselves, they are person, they are people. So they will be like attracted and be promoted through different platforms like Instagram and WhatsApp. So we're considering some investment there for the direct to consumer promotions. I feel like that will be the trend for pharma moving forward in terms of marketing. And I'm pretty sure it will happen for sure. We will leverage more like different channels, like the CPG company, and think like CPG company and move very quick. Because right now it's a little bit slower. So I think it is a trend I'm observing. It will be there.
For me, I think the emergence of more personalized medicines will continue to accelerate. You know, you've got 15, 20 years of that happening in oncology with many, many biomarker-directed therapies hitting a very well-defined and specific patient population. I think you're going to see a proliferation of that in other therapeutic spaces that will make a lot of drugs far more personalized, which hopefully help with getting the right thing to the right patients and creating an even bigger impact. They'll come with economic challenges and lots of different marketing requirements behind them. But I do think that we're going to have still more and more better therapies given the data that we have and the technologies that we have.
I think the one that I'm thinking about is like kind of some of the labor challenges, like changing workforce expectations. I think all of us were participating in this call through like Zoom. Nobody actually wants to go to work. You go to the gym in the middle of the day, everybody's like at like Lifetime Fitness. So, I mean, I think that's a real challenge. I think if you were to ask any CEO, is like if you had $100 million, would you invest in AI or your labor pool? it's kind of like AI, like how do you deploy AI and where should you like invest in people? I think healthcare is very people driven. I mean, the fundamental unit in healthcare, right? It's like the patient, the provider. But I mean, it seems like there's always like I also think it's like no one really knows who the winners and losers are in this like AI journey. We're still so early. But it'll be interesting to follow because I think the impact is like the labor pool is like they're adapting to that. Like they want to work under certain considerations, and we have huge problems in hospitals now where kind of like quote like non-clinical labor, people that are very important to the health system operations, people like supply management, sterile processing, transport, just like transporting people around the hospital. If those functions don't exist and people are choosing to work elsewhere, like how do you deploy AI to be able to augment potential labor challenges in the new workforce of the future?
Wow, these are fantastic. And it's great to hear unique trends so that the students can kind of think about as they're educating themselves where to look and how to gain that insight. But I cannot tell you how insightful this conversation was tonight. I appreciate our audience, everybody for coming tonight, and also kind of guiding this beautiful discussion that we had. Our guests, I can't say more about all of you. It's great to see all of our alums and just, to come back and share with our group. So I know we're already 2 minutes over, so I'll have to say goodnight to everyone. But again, a big thank you to all of the audience members and our panelists. And we hope to see you again soon. Next one is Pharma and Biotech. So have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You.
Thank you.